I went and watched Obsession and I was surprisingly disappointed. Don't get me wrong, I did like it. I thought it was incredibly creative. The cinematography was insane. The acting from the lead female was phenomenal. I don't think I've seen acting like that in recent years. She was genuinely outstanding. I thought the concept was really, really, really clever. I really like they had that. I also like the fact that Gen Z is getting more films. We should be doing that. Bring back media, bring back the arts. They're not dying. It's okay. However, I did have my issues with it, and I think it really stems from the fact that everyone had been raving about this film so much that I almost expected more from it. None of the characters that we saw were delved into enough to warrant the horror that we were seeing. Instead, it just kind of felt like an hour and a half or 2 hours of watching this innocent woman being tortured without really a lesson there. I was unsure who the protagonist of the film was meant to be, and I'm also unsure if they knew who the protagonist of the film was meant to be, because it seemed like it was Nikki, and then it seemed like it was Bear, and then it seemed like it was both of them, and it seemed like it was neither of them, because neither of these characters were ever explored as to who they were at their core. They were never explored as to why they kept doing what they were doing, what their motivations were. Every single time we got a little nugget of something interesting, it was immediately brushed aside. The concept was really, really clever and interesting. The actual plot felt kind of predictable and monotonous. I wasn't surprised by anything that happened in it. The main thing I wanted was an explanation as to why Bear kept doing what he was doing. The whole time it seemed like we were just watching him be freaked out by Nikki, where there was no explanation as to why he stayed in this relationship. Why would anyone stay in this relationship? Why did he want to be there? And we got a little bit of understanding at the beginning with him being obsessed with Nikki, because it is actually his obsession with her that is the whole premise of this film, rather than her obsession with him. But we didn't get more than that. We saw how it went so bad and how it went so wrong so fast, and then we never really delved into why he stayed. We got a lot of the what was happening, but none of the why. The most horrifying line of Bear's in the entire film is after Nikki is having the breakdown on the bed and it's real Nikki coming through. Bear goes, "Would it really be so bad to be with me?" And that I wanted more of. I wanted more of us than the real Bear kind of poking through, rather than him just being freaked out and confused. That felt actually really important, that moment there. But it was the only one in the whole film. Nikki's character, I felt they were almost discovering her throughout the film, the filmmakers, because she was so complex and so complicated. It was this woman who was possessed, but the most interesting parts of her character were the fact that this woman was trapped in there. That's where the real horror was. That terrified me, and there were so few of them, and they were immediately kind of tossed aside. It was almost like Bear was afraid to really touch on that because he didn't want to confront what he was feeling, which, fine, but let's dive into that a little bit. I think it didn't help that I was in a theater with a lot of men. I went to a midnight screening, and so it was a lot of like 20, 30-year-old men in the room, and they were laughing throughout the entire thing. It felt like they didn't understand what was happening, which I get to a degree. Not everyone's going to get it. Not everyone's going to get the horror. But they were laughing at very, very horrifying moments. They were laughing at the moments when Nikki was basically begging Bear to kill her. They were laughing in the moments where she was essentially being raped over and over again. They were laughing in the moments when Nikki was being crazy Nikki and freaky Nikki, because it was funny. It was, of course, a bit funny. And it's meant to be funny, but it's meant to be funny in a horrifying way because you're meant to know that this woman isn't real. But it also isn't being read that way. I've been seeing so many memes online of Nikki being crazy and people being like, oh, when you tell her, like, you know, that she can't stay out too late or that you just want to hang out with the boys, and Nikki's going crazy in these memes. And I'm like, that's not the right message to take from this film. And I think it's in large part because they focus so much of the film on this actress's phenomenal performance being freaky Nikki, and not enough on Bear and the fact that he was the villain. They didn't delve enough into his psyche. This normal guy who can actually be really evil and obsessive and possessive over a woman, and who kind of like makes his own fantasy out of a woman and then doesn't want to let her go, even when it goes horribly wrong for him and for her. We didn't get any of that. We just got Bear being freaked out. We got one moment of him saying that he wanted to almost keep her, like, would it be so bad to be with me? That was it, and that was immediately then cut off to a new scene. We didn't really get anything else. We just saw Bear being confused and freaked out by this girl who went crazy. I also don't think it's a good idea to cater to a very specific portion of an audience. Those men are never going to get it. They never will. Even if this had the most amount of character development for Bear, even if they focused only on him and delved only into his psyche, they still wouldn't get it. So I do get just ignoring them. I think it didn't help my viewing experience. I also haven't liked what I've been seeing online and what people are taking from the film. That said, we didn't get anything really from Bear. We didn't get any delving into his character. If he was a villain, make him a villain. Show some progression, show some character development or devolution. Show something rather than just the same kind of thing over and over and over again. I can understand a lot of different interpretations of the film, a lot of messages that could be taken from it, but I wasn't sure which one the film was actually trying to say itself. You could look at it through a parasocial relationship lens, as if everyone's imparting so much onto one person that it's not even the person they actually think it is. It could also be a reflection on the modern dating world, on how everyone just wants to bypass actually awkward conversations and just get an easy shortcut into a love, into like a relationship, rather than doing the work. It could also be a commentary on how men fetishize women and how that is both damaging to men and women at the end of the day. It doesn't just harm women, it harms everyone. It could be any number of things, and I do understand that there are lessons there. It could be a message on the cautionary tale of not taking shortcuts, of actually having the awkward conversation, of not obsessing over people that you don't even really know. I understand that much, but I wanted more of the why. Why did he stay? Why did he continue in that? Because you've got the shortcut, what happens now? And we just didn't get that. And so from a character perspective and actually understanding who these characters were, I was disappointed. That said, I didn't hate the film. I did enjoy it. I thought it was really kind of like good and revolutionary in a way in what they were portraying and how they were portraying it. But I wanted more of the characters. I wanted more of who they were, why they were doing what they were doing, and the consequences of that. Because I felt like there was a missing link. We were getting a lot of the beginning and the end and not any of the middle stuff. But I'm very excited to see what Curry Barker does next, because I do think that that entire cast and crew has a very bright future ahead of them.